My name is Avery. I'm 24, and I spent the first 18 years of my life being told, in ways both direct and indirect, that I did not fully belong to the family I was born into. Not by everyone, by one person. The one whose opinion, in a household built around his approval, functioned as the weather system everyone else dressed for. My father, Raymond, had blue eyes. My mother, Claire, had blue eyes. My sister, Jade, had blue eyes. I have brown eyes, which is genetically possible from two blue-eyed parents under specific recessive conditions, and which Raymond had decided, somewhere around the time I was 7 years old and asking questions he didn't like, meant something else entirely. He never said it plainly until the night of my 18th birthday. He had spent 11 years implying it, which is in some ways worse. Implication leaves room for hope. You spend your childhood performing the part of someone who belongs, auditioning for a verdict that never comes, wondering if today is the day the man who coaches your sister's soccer team and misses your school play finds something in your face he recognizes. The night of my 18th birthday, he said it plainly. He said he had done his duty. He said he wasn't responsible for what my mother did before they married. He said the house, the name, the 18 years of maintenance he had provided were his contribution, and they were now complete. He told me to pack what I needed for a week and that the rest could be arranged later. I packed. I left. I did not cry in front of him. What Raymond did not know, what I did not know yet either, was that 3 weeks later I would take a DNA test in the apartment of my college roommate Elena, mail it from a post office 2 miles from campus, and receive results that would answer a question he had spent 11 years asking in the worst possible way. The answer was not what he expected. And I sent it to the family group chat on a Tuesday afternoon with no introduction and no explanation and let the results speak for themselves. Welcome to the family ledger, where we talk honestly about money, family, and the moments when the truth arrives, whether anyone sent for it or not. If you've ever been made to feel like a stranger in your own home, this story is for you. Subscribe, drop a comment, and let me take you back to the beginning. I want to tell you about the household I grew up in before I tell you what happened when I left it. Because the architecture of a family shapes everything that happens inside it, and you need to understand the architecture before the cracks make sense. Raymond Calloway was 34 when I was born. He worked in commercial property management, the kind of work that involves a lot of meetings where you are the person at the head of the table, and he brought the disposition of that work home with him every evening. He was not a violent man. I want to be clear about that because it matters to the shape of the story. He was a man who managed, who assessed, who made determinations about things and people and communicated those determinations with the quiet finality of someone who did not expect to be contradicted. He loved Jade. I knew this early and clearly, and I do not blame Jade for it, which is something I had to arrive at over time and through significant work. Jade is 2 years younger than me. She has blue eyes and a laugh that filled the room the way Raymond's did, and a way of tilting her head when she was listening that was so similar to his that it was the kind of thing people commented on at family dinners. She looks just like you, Raymond. She'd smile, and he'd smile, and the room would warm in a way it did not warm for me. I was not invisible. I want to be precise about this because the story of a child who's overlooked entirely is a different story than mine. Raymond provided. He put food on the table and a roof over my head and paid for the braces I needed at 13 and the school trip to Washington, D.C. I took it at 15. He attended the things he was supposed to attend. He signed the forms that needed signing. He was, in the bureaucratic sense, a father. But there was a thermostat in that house set to a temperature that changed when I walked in. Not dramatically, just perceptibly. The way a room changes when a cloud passes over the sun. The warmth was still there in the technical sense. But the quality of it was different, and I felt the difference from the time I was old enough to feel anything. My mother, Claire, navigated this the way women navigate these situations in families where one person controls the atmospheric pressure. Carefully. With compensatory warmth that I recognized even as a child was partly guilt and partly love and partly the ongoing work of managing Raymond's moods by managing the rest of us around them. She was gentle with me in a way that had an apology built into it that she never spoke directly. She touched my hair when he wasn't looking. She came to my school play and sat in the third row and cried in the quiet way she did everything. She knew what he believed. She did not confront it. That is her part of this story, and I have spent a significant amount of time deciding how much of my anger belongs there. The answer is some of it. Not all of it. She was in a marriage to a man with his own gravitational pull, and I understand, more now than I did at 18, how that limits the options a person feels they have. Jade and I were close in the way siblings are close when one of them is the favorite and understands it is not their fault and tries to compensate for it by being a particularly good sister. She helped me with math homework. She told me when Raymond was in a difficult mood so I could adjust. She sat next to me at family dinners and kicked me under the table when something was funny that we couldn't laugh at openly. She was the best part of growing up in that house and the only part of leaving it that made leaving feel like loss. The implication started, as best as I can reconstruct it, around my 7th birthday. Raymond's sister Margaret was at the dinner table. She was looking at a photograph from the party, the one of me holding the cake, and she said something that she probably believed was innocent. She said, "Funny, isn't it, how genetics work? Neither of you has brown eyes, but look at those." She meant it as an observation, a genetics curiosity. She had read something somewhere about recessive genes and was sharing it the way people share things they find interesting. Raymond did not say anything. He set down his fork, and he looked at the photograph, and then he looked at my mother, and the silence had a quality to it that I was too young to name, but old enough to feel. That was the first moment. The one everything that came after was threaded through. Over the next 11 years, Raymond's belief, because that is what it was, a belief held without evidence and without ever speaking it directly enough to be challenged, settled into the household like a low-grade weather condition. He never called me not his daughter in front of other people. He never said it to my face, not until my 18th birthday. But it was in the particular way he said Jade's name and then mine. In the different quality of attention. In the small ceremonies of belonging that he performed for her and withheld, not cruelly but consistently, from me. I absorbed it the way children absorb things that don't have names yet. I made myself smaller. I achieved more, because achieving was the one currency that seemed to have value across the atmospheric divide. I was a good student. I had good friends. I built a life that existed partly inside that house and mostly in the spaces outside it where the thermostat was set to a temperature I had not learned to doubt. By 17, I had been accepted early to a state university 45 minutes from home. I had a partial academic scholarship. I had a part-time job at a coffee shop that I had been depositing from since I was 16 into a savings account Raymond did not know about. Not from secrecy, but from the instinct of someone who had spent a decade understanding that their ground was less stable than it appeared. By 18, I had $4,200 saved. I did not know then what I was saving it for. I know now. I was saving it for the night of my birthday. My 18th birthday was a Saturday in March. My mother made dinner, the lasagna I had asked for every birthday since I was 9. And Jade had bought a cake from the bakery I liked and written "Happy Birthday Avery" on it in the purple lettering she knew was my favorite. We ate. We talked about the university. Raymond sat at the head of the table and asked questions about my scholarship structure in the tone of someone reviewing a financial report. He was not cruel at dinner. He was a censorial. I had learned to answer a censorial. After dinner, my mother took Jade to return something at a store 2 miles away. She had created this errand. I understood that later. Raymond came into the living room where I was clearing the dessert plates, and he sat in his chair, and he said he wanted to talk. I set the plates down. He said he had been thinking about the transition to college and what it meant for the household. He said he had provided everything a father provides, and he had done it fully and without complaint. He said he thought I was a smart girl, and he expected I would do well. He said he also thought it was time to be honest, now that I was legally an adult, about something he had carried for a long time. He said he didn't believe I was his biological daughter. He said he wasn't accusing my mother. He said he was simply stating what he had believed for years based on things that didn't add up. He said he had fulfilled his obligation. He said the house was his and my mother's home, and it would continue to be Jade's home and my mother's home, but that my room was available for the transition period while I got settled at school. He did not say I was being kicked out. He said the transition period. He said it with the vocabulary of property management, a tenancy concluding in an orderly fashion. I stood in the living room of the house I had grown up in, and I looked at the man who had coached Jade's soccer team and missed my school plays and set his fork down at a dinner table 11 years ago and made a decision about me based on the color of my eyes. I said, okay. He seemed to expect more than that. Something he could manage. Tears, or argument, or the particular kind of scene that allows the person creating the situation to reframe themselves as the one handling it. I gave him none of that. I went upstairs. I packed a bag with what I needed for a week. I texted Elena. I carried the bag to my car, and I drove away, and I did not look in the rearview mirror because I had learned early that the things behind you have more power when you watch them. Elena's apartment was a second-floor walk-up near campus that smelled like instant coffee and the vanilla candles she burned constantly. I slept on her couch for 3 days and then found a sublet 2 blocks from campus for the remainder of the spring semester. I used $1,800 of my savings for the deposit and first month. My mother called on Sunday. Her voice had the quality it had on the worst days of my childhood.
careful and guilty and reaching for words that kept sliding away from her. She said Raymond had told her about the conversation. She said she was sorry. She said she wanted me to know she loved me and that she knew this was hard. I asked her one question. I said, Mom, is what he believes true? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said no. She said it simply, without elaboration. Just the word, carrying the weight of 11 years behind it. I said, thank you. I said I needed some time. She said she understood. We hung up. I sat in Elena's kitchen for a while. Then I asked her if she still had the DNA testing kit she had ordered for a genealogy project and abandoned in her desk drawer 6 months earlier. She did. She found it in under 2 minutes. I registered the kit online, collected the sample, and mailed it from a post office 2 miles from campus on a Tuesday morning. The results would take 3 to 4 weeks, the confirmation email said. I put my phone in my bag and went to my 9 o'clock lecture and did not think about it again for the rest of the day. That's not entirely true. I thought about it every day. But I had learned to put things in a specific mental location and return to them when there was something to actually do. And until the results arrived, there was nothing to do except continue building the life I'd always been building outside the thermostat of Raymond's house. If you've ever waited for information that was going to change the shape of something, no matter what it said, leave a comment. Tell me what that waiting felt like in your body. And if you haven't subscribed to the Family Ledger yet, do it now. Because the results that came back 3 weeks later were not what anyone in my family expected, including me. The email arrived on a Thursday at 11:42 in the morning. I was in the campus library working on a paper. My phone screen lit up with the subject line, "Your ancestry DNA results are ready." I closed my laptop. I sat for a moment. Then I opened the app. The first thing the results showed was my ethnicity breakdown, which I scrolled past. The second thing was DNA matches, which is a list of relatives who have also taken the test and shared genetic material with you. There was my mother's side. Cousins I recognized, a great aunt I had met once at a funeral, the familiar architecture for families' genetics laid out in percentages. There was no match to Raymond, not a partial match, not a distant match, nothing. Which I had expected, or at least had considered as a possible outcome. What I had not considered, what I had not allowed myself to construct as a possibility because it was too large a thing to carry speculatively, was the fourth entry in the match list. A first-degree relative match. 47.3% shared DNA. The category the algorithm assigned to it was parent/child or full sibling. The name on the profile was a placeholder, an anonymous account with only a username. But the match percentage told me something. I had a sibling on this test who was not Jade. Or I had a parent on this test who was not Raymond. I sat in the library for a long time. I looked at the numbers. I am not a geneticist, but I had spent 3 weeks reading everything I could find about DNA match interpretation. And I understood what 47.3% meant. It meant a full biological relationship, a parent or a full sibling. My mother was not on the test. Raymond was not on the test, which meant the 47.3% match was either a biological parent I didn't know or a sibling who shared that parent. I opened the message function on the app and sent a brief, careful message to the anonymous profile. I introduced myself. I said I had received this match and was trying to understand my family history. I said any information they were comfortable sharing would be helpful. I said I would respect whatever boundaries they chose. Then I went back to my paper. Because there was nothing else to do yet and the paper was due on Friday. The anonymous profile responded in 2 days. Her name was Brenna. She was 27, lived in Asheville, and had taken the test as part of a genealogy project she'd started when her own questions about her family history became something she couldn't leave unexamined. She had grown up with her mother. Her father, she said, had not been part of her life. Her mother had told her his name when Brenna was 22. His name was Raymond Calloway. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I read the rest of her message. She said she had known about me, or known there was another child in Raymond's household. He had tried to reach out to Raymond once, at 23, and been told through a lawyer's letter that he was not acknowledging the relationship and would pursue legal action if she continued to contact him or his family. She had stopped, not because she believed the letter, because she had built a life that did not require him to acknowledge anything, and she had decided she was done paying the cost of his choices. She said she was glad I had reached out. She said she had wondered about the other side of the family for years. She asked if I was okay. I wrote back and told her the short version. She wrote back and told me more of hers. We messaged for 3 days with the particular intensity of two people discovering an overlap they had not known existed and trying to understand its dimensions. On the fourth day, she asked if I wanted to do a video call. I said yes. She looked like me around the eyes, not identically, but in the way that two people from the same genetic source resemble each other in the architecture of their features, even when the surface details differ. I noticed it and did not say it immediately, and then she said it first. She said, "You have Raymond's forehead," and laughed the laugh of someone who has been carrying a painful thing long enough to find the dark edge of it occasionally funny. I laughed too. It was the first time I had laughed about any of it. What I am about to tell you, I want to say carefully, because the decisions I made in the days that followed were mine, and I have thought about them many times since, and I stand by them, but I also understand that not everyone who hears this story will agree with every choice. I had the DNA results. I had Brenna's message. I had the confirmation from my mother that Raymond's belief about my parentage was not true. I had the proof that he had a biological daughter he had denied and pursued legally to silence. And I had the family group chat, which included Raymond, my mother Jade, my mother's sister, my mother's parents, and 3 cousins, and which had been used for years to share birthday wishes and holiday photographs and the comfortable currency of family normalcy. I sat with all of it for 4 days. On the 4th day, I opened the group chat. I shared 2 screenshots. The first was my DNA results showing no match to Raymond. The second was the match entry showing Brenna at 47.3% in her attached profile, which she had made public for this purpose after I asked and she said yes. I added 1 line of text. It said, "I thought everyone should have the same information." Then I put my phone face down on my desk and went to make coffee. I want to be honest about what happened next because I think the honest version is more useful than the dramatic version, even though the dramatic version has better optics. My phone was face down for 47 minutes. I know because I timed it. When I picked it up, there were 23 messages in the chat and 14 missed calls. I did not answer the calls immediately. I read the messages first, because I believe in reading before reacting. My mother's messages were the ones that arrived first. 3 of them arrived within 2 minutes of each other. The first said, "Avery, please call me." The second said, "I can explain." The third said, "Please." Jade's messages came next. She had written, "What does this mean?" 3 times in a row, and then called me twice, and then written, "I don't understand this, please call me." Raymond had written 1 message. It said, "Take this down immediately." I did not take it down. My mother's sister had written, "Oh my God," and then nothing else. The cousins had said nothing. My mother's father, my grandfather, had written, "Avery, call me when you can." That was the message I responded to first. My grandfather is 71 and has the particular quality of men who have lived long enough to understand that most dramatic situations are not improved by dramatic responses. He picked up on the first ring and said, "Tell me what you know." I told him. All of it. Raymond's speech on my birthday, the DNA test, Brenna, the 47.3%. He listened without interrupting, which is the thing about him that I have always loved most. When I finished, he said, "Are you safe?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you okay?" I said I was getting there. He said, "Good." He said he would handle the family calls and I should take the time I needed. He said whatever I needed from him was mine. He said he was sorry for what Raymond had done on my birthday, and he should have known, and he was sorry he hadn't. That was the conversation that mattered most of all of them. Raymond called 11 times over 2 days. I did not answer. On the 3rd day, he sent a text. It said you had no right to do what you did. That was family business. I wrote back 1 sentence. I said, "You made it family business when you put it in the family." He did not respond. My mother called on the 2nd day, and we talked for 40 minutes. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. She told me things she had held for 24 years, the choices made before I was born, the reasons she had stayed in a marriage where the thermostat was set wrong, the particular grief of watching a child carry something she had caused and not knowing how to take it back. I am not going to tell you the details of what she said because those details belong to her and to me and not to the group chat or to the story. What I will tell you is that the conversation changed something. Not everything, but something.
The way apologies change things when they are real and not the performing kind, when they are the genuine kind that comes from someone who has looked at what they did and decided the truth is worth the cost of saying it. I told her I loved her. I meant it. I also told her I was going to need time to figure out what our relationship looked like going forward. She said she understood. She said she would wait. Jade called on the 3rd day. Her voice was the voice of someone who has been crying and has stopped and is trying to speak from a place past the crying. She asked me what the 47.3% meant for her. I told her it meant I had a half-sibling named Brenna who shared Raymond as a biological parent. It did not directly answer anything about Jade. It only established that Raymond had a child he had not acknowledged and that I was not his biological daughter. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Avery, what if he's not mine either?" I said I didn't know. She said, "Should I take a test?" I said that was her decision. I said I would be there for her whatever she decided. She took the test. She ordered it the same day and told me in a text. And I did not say anything except that I was with her. The results came back 2 weeks later. I was in the library again, different paper, same table by the window when she called me. She said, "Avery." She said my name, and then she stopped. I said, "Tell me." She said, "He's not my father either." I heard her breathing on the other end of the phone. I heard the particular sound of someone sitting with the ground shifting under them, the sound I knew from my own experience of it. The sound of a world reorganizing itself around a fact that cannot be unfacted. I said, "I know. I'm sorry." She said, "Are you?" I thought about that. Then I said, "I'm sorry for the part that hurts, not for the true part." She said, "That's fair." We sat on the phone for a while without saying much. Two sisters who had grown up in the same house under the same atmospheric pressure, one of whom had been its designated belonging, and one of whom had been its designated question mark, and it turned out neither of them had been what Raymond had decided they were. And the ceiling of that had fallen on both of them in different ways. I want to tell you what happened with Brenna because that part of the story is the one that cost me the least to tell, which probably means it is the part I am most grateful for. We met in person 6 weeks after the first message. She drove from Asheville to Charlotte, and we had lunch at a restaurant near the university for 3 hours. She is practical and funny and precise in the way that I am precise. And we sat across from each other and noticed the similarities the way you notice them when they are surprising and also somehow inevitable. She said she had spent years being angry at Raymond and had arrived somewhere past the anger. Not forgiveness exactly. She described it as indifference with clear eyes. She said she had built her life without him, and she was not going to let the fact that he was her biological father change what she had built. She said meeting me was different from meeting him. She said I hadn't done anything to her. I had just existed in the same situation from the other side of it. I said the same was true in reverse. She said she knew. We have seen each other 7 times since that lunch. We text regularly. She came to my university for a visit in the fall, and we walked around campus, and she told me about her work, which is landscape architecture, and I told her about my major, which is public health administration. We are building something. I don't have the right word for it yet. Somewhere between friendship and sisterhood, with the particular texture of a relationship that has no template, because the circumstance that created it has no template. It is one of the things in my life that I did not plan and cannot fully explain and am simply grateful for. Raymond did not reach out again after the one text. My mother told me he was consulting an attorney, which I found unremarkable. He could consult an attorney about the fact that I had shared my own DNA results in a family group chat. I wished him luck with that. Jade moved out of the family home in June. She moved into an apartment with a friend from college, and she called me on the day she finished unpacking and said, "It's strange. Being somewhere the temperature is even." I knew exactly what she meant. My mother is still in the house. She and Raymond are, as far as I know, still married. Though I understand from the careful way she discusses it that the architecture of the marriage has shifted considerably. I do not know what they will do. That is their story to navigate, and I have enough of my own to navigate. What I know is that my mother calls me on Sundays. We talk about real things, not all real things. Not all at once. But more real things than we talked about in 18 years of living in the same house. That is something. It is not everything. It is something. And I am learning to hold something without demanding it become everything immediately. My grandfather came to my graduation. He sat in the 3rd row, the row my mother sat in at school plays. And he clapped when my name was called with the particular quality of a man who intends for you to hear him above the crowd. Afterward, he took me to dinner. He ordered the same thing he always ordered, which is a steak that he will tell you is cooked wrong regardless of how it is cooked. And he talked for a while about things that had nothing to do with DNA or Raymond or the family group chat. Then he said, "I'm proud of you." Not for the test. He made sure I understood he didn't mean the test. He said for building something through all of it. For not letting what he believed about you become what you believed about yourself. I sat with that for a moment, I said I had help. I meant Elena and Brenna and him and my own savings account, and the part of myself that had always known the thermostat in that house was set wrong and had refused to accept the temperature as a fact about my nature. He said, "That's still you." I said I was working on believing that. He said, "Keep working. Here's what I know after all of it. You can spend your entire childhood trying to earn a belonging that was never withheld because of anything you did. You can make yourself smaller, achieve more, perform the part of the child who deserves what every child deserves by default. And the person withholding it will not change the terms because the terms were never about you. They were about a story someone told themselves before you were old enough to have a say in it. The DNA test did not give me what I had been looking for as a child. Nothing could. What I had been looking for as a child was for a man to look at me and see his daughter and love what he saw. That man was not capable of doing that regardless of what any test said. And the test, when it came back, confirmed not that I had been wrong to want it, but that his belief was not the truth I had to live inside. I am not his biological daughter. I am also not the person his 11 years of implication tried to make me. Both of those things are true. The second one is the one I carry. If you are in a family where someone has decided something about you that is not true and is enforcing it with the authority of their position in the household, hear this. Their certainty is not evidence. Their confidence is not proof. And the story they are telling about you is a story about their own limitations, not a report on your nature. The truth is not always kind when it arrives, but it is always more livable than the lie you've been handed in its place. I have a half-sister who is building things with her hands in Asheville. I have a grandfather who claps in the third row. I have a savings account I started at 16 because some part of me already knew I would need a foundation I had built myself. And I have a name that is mine, that belongs to me regardless of whose name anyone thought to put beside it on a document or a birthday card or a family group chat. That's my story. A DNA test a Tuesday afternoon, and a group chat that delivered a truth nobody could take back. If it found you at the right moment, share it with someone who's been made to feel like a question mark in a place they deserve to be a certainty. Drop a comment. Tell me if you've ever known something about yourself that someone else tried to overwrite. I read every one. Subscribe to the Family Ledger. I'll see you in the next story.